Okay, today we are going to be diving right into swatching and talking about and trying on a couple of relatively new palettes. I have one from Viseart. This is called Apricotine Lumiere. It's my favorite format. You have 12 pans with a mix of mattes and shimmers, and Viseart palettes are definitely up there with some of my favorite formulas, particularly when it comes to mattes, but over the years I have really come to enjoy their shimmers as well. And I am brand new to Victoria Beckham Beauty eyeshadow palettes. This is the Orchid palette. It launched not long ago. I am not a channel that reviews a lot of luxury makeup. However, I've been very curious to dive into trying some more products from Victoria Beckham Beauty. And I have heard good things about these palettes, so I was excited to give this one a shot. Here's what the Viseart palette looks like swatched to my arm. In this palette, you get 12 eyeshadows with a mix of mattes and shimmers. It retails for $40 and you can use a discount affiliate code, so I am going to pop mine up on the screen now. As you can see, the mattes in here are definitely on the softer side. Even that deepest brown matte is on the lighter side when it comes to my own personal preference for the depth in a palette, but we're going to go ahead and test this out and see how much drama we can get. And here is what the Victoria Beckham Orchid palette looks like swatched to my arm. You get 2 mattes, 2 shimmers. One of the shimmers is more sparkly and the other one is more like a satin shade. Victoria Beckham Beauty is a luxury brand, so the price point is definitely higher than I'm used to for a quad. If you buy the eyeshadows alone without the compact, it's $51, and with that beautiful tortoiseshell compact, it's $76. All right, we are going to start off by doing 2 looks with the Viseart palette. And, when I swatched it, I think my main concern is that I really only have like one true deepening up shade. This one I may be able to a little bit, but I don't know. This is still actually pretty close to my skin tone. But the shimmers in here are really pretty. So I may do one look that's shimmer focused, but I am going to start off with a peach look. So starting off with this matte here, I'm just going to take it and run it all over the lid and into the crease. The formula for Viseart I have said for a long while. I find the matte formula to be one of the best and most consistent in my collection. And I actually have lots of favorites when it comes to Viseart palettes. I'm going to take that same matte and run it underneath the lower lash line. And then now I'm just going to build up a little bit of depth, starting off with this second to deepest brown matte. And something that I really like about the formula from Viseart is that the mattes are incredibly buildable. You don't get a full opacity right away. The swatches also oftentimes I feel like don't do the shades justice. And that's okay because I feel like these just perform really well. Okay, and then as my deepening up shade, I am going to use that deepest brown matte and just put it in the inner corner. And then just connecting it to the lower lash line as well. Priming the lid with a little bit of the Clionadh Shimmer Enhancer. Okay, and for my lid shade, I'm having a little bit of difficulty deciding. I do want to use this pretty kind of peach shade shimmer, but then there's also a really pretty duochrome in the palette too. And here is what it looks like swatched on my fingertip. And the back of my hand, I think I'm going to actually use both. So on the inner portion of the lid, I'm going to use that lighter peach shimmer. And I've said this also for a little while, the shimmers from Viseart have really stepped up in the last couple of years to the point where I genuinely look forward to using them. I'm actually going to use 3 shimmers. So first I'm going to go in with this more kind of bronzy tone shimmer and just kind of blend it into the deeper outer corner. And then right over top, I'm going to take this more duochrome shade and just use it as a bit of a sparkly topper. All right, I added some liner and mascara, and here is the first completed look. Okay, for my second look, I'm going to do something that's shimmer heavy. I'm going to start off with this second to deepest brown matte and use it as my transition shade. And I'm just going to run a little bit under the lower lash line. And since I haven't used the shimmer yet, I'm going to use this one as a base shimmer. I really want to make this one be the star of the show, and I'm going to show you what that one looks like swatched again because it is so beautiful. It's probably my favorite shimmer in the palette. All right, now we have to go in with this shimmer. Here is what it looks like swatched on my fingertip and then on the back of my hand. Such a pretty shade. I'm just going to take that and layer it right over top of that first shimmer. And then I'm also just going to take the smallest amount and use it as an inner corner shade and as a brow bone highlight. All right, I added liner and mascara, and here is my second completed look. Okay, now for some wrap-up thoughts on the new Viseart palette. Now, this palette actually has been out for a couple of months now, I want to say. It is their newest palette, and I had a good experience with the quality. I feel like it's right on par with all of the other Visearts in terms of its quality. It's just that the color story isn't as much up my alley. First of all, I do prefer some of their slightly more colorful palettes, or at least when they have neutral palettes, I like that we get a little bit more depth. I do like that I have a deepening up shade, but I wish I had some deeper mattes in here rather than just this one. The shimmers are really, really pretty, and I think I would probably be able to come up with more looks if I had a slightly different matte selection. So I like it and I'm gonna get use out of it. I'm just probably not gonna be able to get as much use out of it as some of my other palettes from Viseart. I think if you have a lighter skin tone and you really like this color story, then you probably will get on well with it and be able to create more looks with it than I did. This is definitely my favorite format of palette from Viseart, and I am excited to see what they're gonna have for spring and summer. I feel like another palette launch is probably around the corner. All right, now we're gonna play around with this new palette from Victoria Beckham. This is the Orchid palette. I do have a few products from the brand that I want to play around with as well because I've been wanting to do a full face of Victoria Beckham. I have used this blush quite a number of times. It's a cream blush and it is a terracotta and it's called Mini Skirt. And I love a terracotta brown leaning blush, and we are getting into warmer months where I really love this kind of blush, this shade of blush. And I like that this formula has almost what I would describe as not like a matte finish, but also not a dewy finish. It's somewhere right in between. It doesn't look wet or dewy on the skin. And this blush on me is a nice kind of subtle everyday blush shade. Here's what it looks like fully applied. And then for my lips, I'm going to use this Posh Balm, and I think it's gonna complement the Orchid palette really well. This is the shade Cassis, and I actually haven't tried this one yet, so I'm gonna be applying it for the first time. But I think it's a sheer purple, and I am wearing MAC Chestnut as a lip liner. Yeah, it's pretty sheer, but you can build it up a little bit. All right, now let's dip into this Orchid palette. I'm gonna do one look, and I'm gonna put the inspo for my look up on the screen. It's actually from their promo pics. They did a very dramatic halo, and I loved it because I always want to see how dramatic can I get. Of course, you can go softer. I feel like, you know, as I was swatching these mattes seemed super buildable to me. By the way, I'm going in first with this lighter purple shade as more of like my transition shade. And I'm sweeping it all over the lid and into the crease along the lower lash line. And this is really just giving me a soft wash of purple. All right, I have that lighter purple shade down on both eyes, and now I'm going to use the other matte in the palette, which is this really rich plum toned shade. And again, I found this one to be really buildable when I was swatching it. So I think that's going to be my experience when I apply it as well. I'm brand new to trying these eyeshadow palettes. I know people absolutely love them, but we'll see. So I do like that you have control over the amount of pigment that you get. You can totally use this and just get a wash, but I can also build it up for a higher opacity and intensity. And just like the promo pics, I want this to be quite dark and smoky. So I'm just taking my time to build up the pigmentation. And then I'm going to do the same thing along the lower lash line. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. Just to soften around the edges, I'm going to take that lighter purple and just make a little bit of a softer gradient between that deep purple and my skin. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. I don't know if in this promo look they used both shimmers. I don't know whether they just used this lighter shimmer and skip this one altogether, but I want to use both. So I'm going to start off with this darker shimmer and then layer the lighter one over top. And I did put down a little bit of shimmer enhancer from Clionadh just in the center of the lid. And actually, this is less deep than I thought it was. It's really pretty. I feel like this is probably the more sparkly of the two shades, but we'll see. So I'm just going to put this one in the center of the lid. And then I'm just adding a little bit to the lower lash line with this flatter brush. Okay, so in the pan, this one looks like it's more like a champagne satin toned shade. I'm not sure why like this one is in such a big pan compared to the other ones. Maybe that's the shade that people would use the most. But I'm just going to take a little bit of it, and it feels satin in texture. And I'm just going to pop it on top of that first shimmer just to add a little bit more brightness. And then I'm just going to add a little bit to the center of the lower lash line. And I'm also going to use that as a highlighting shade, but just sort of a light dusting of it underneath the brow bone and in the inner corner. Okay, there is an eyeliner called Orchid, but I don't have it. I do have this sparkly brown shade, and this is in the shade Cocoa Pave. And I'm just going to put that in the waterline. Like, these are so glidey. I find that they don't always, because they don't really completely set down, at least for me, they don't have the longest wear in the waterline, but for graphic looks or as a wing, they work great. I would just have to apply this again if I wanted to wear it for a long time. And for my mascara, I'm going to use the Vast Lash. This is also from Victoria Beckham. It's a black mascara. I don't think it's tubing or anything, but again, I'm just trying to get a feel for more of the products. It seems like it's pretty volumizing. And it feels like a wet mascara, which scares me a little bit because I can get smudging with these types of mascaras. All right, and here is the completed look using the new Orchid palette from Victoria Beckham. And just with flash so that you can appreciate the shimmer and shine a little bit more. All right, and now that I've had a chance to play around with this palette a little bit, I want to close up with some wrap-up thoughts. So this is actually my first time trying an eyeshadow palette from Victoria Beckham. I had tried the lid luster several years ago, but never a palette. First things first, this is definitely a pricey palette. If you buy the shadows themselves, I want to say it's around $50, but that's without the compact. If you get it with the compact, then it's in the 70s and it's magnetic. You can replace it with refills if you completely use it up, or if you want to switch out the shadows in here for another set of shadows. I have to say that in terms of the performance of these eyeshadows, they honestly performed really well, and I wanted to see, you know, if I could use this palette to obtain a look that I really like, which is a high impact look. And I was able to do that, and I was able to do that very seamlessly. I feel like these eyeshadows are user-friendly and they pack a punch. And honestly, I got this palette because it's the new one. It's not my top favorite color story. I like the blue one, obviously. And they have one, I believe it's called Night Flash. That's more of like a smoky eye type of palette. Those are the two I think that are my own personal favorites. But I gotta say, in terms of the look that I created with this palette, I ended up really liking it, and I see myself using it quite a bit. The other thing I really like about this palette is that it's travel friendly. I like a small palette, concise color story, so in that way, I think that this is just a very welcome addition to a travel makeup bag. As a brand, I just feel like Victoria Beckham Beauty is one of the few luxury beauty brands that really draws me in. So I feel like in that way, this palette really didn't let me down. I still have a lot more playing around with the Victoria Beckham Beauty products to see where there's hits and where there's misses for me. But I think that this palette definitely falls under the category of being a hit. If I wasn't taking price into account, then I would say that the Victoria Beckham palette is my favorite of the two. And I say that because I was able to get a little bit more depth and drama with this palette than I was with this palette. Now that I've had a chance to go through everything, I would love to hear what you think of these two palettes down in the comments. Do you have a favorite from Victoria Beckham that you would recommend to me? Have they been on your wish list to try? What did you think of the Viseart palette? For me personally, I liked it, but it wasn't my favorite from the brand because I don't think it's the best suited to my skin tone. As always, I really hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.